We need to talk about this Inflation Reduction Act. Now, when I discuss this tonight, I do want to speak about this in a way that everyone can understand exactly what is going on. So I'm going to break this up into parts because that's what I like to do as an educator. I like to break things down for people. So first, I'm going to explain to you what exactly is the Inflation Reduction Act. So let's start with that, and then we will go to other sections here. Let's go ahead and get into it, ladies and gentlemen. Democrats passed a major climate, health, and tax bill. Here is what's in it. You see, he has a thumbs up there. There's really no need to be cheering. I'll get into that in a second. Senate Democrats, after weeks of negotiations to revive the core of their election year agenda, passed a spending bill which would attempt to tackle climate change, the high cost of prescription drugs, and lower the deficit by roughly $300 billion. Late Saturday night into Sunday morning, senators voted on amendments to Democrats' major spending bill that tackles healthcare, climate, and taxes. All right, let's pay attention here. The legislation passed through the budget reconciliation process, which means all 50 Democrats and one tiebreaker vote from Vice President Harris were needed, since none of the 50 Republican senators voted for the bill. It also restricts the measures in the bill to those directly change federal spending and revenue. Okay, let's jet down here. Overall, the bill is very scaled down solution to what many Democrats, including President Biden, had asked for originally. Keep that in mind, ladies and gentlemen, as we go further into this. Now, I am going to go ahead and start with the climate change portion of the bill. More than $300 billion would be invested in energy and climate reform, the largest federal clean energy investment in U.S. history. The bill has support from many environmental and climate activists, but is short of the $555 billion that Democrats had originally called for. So that right there lets you know, just talking about the climate portion of that bill right now, that it's not enough. Surprise. Just on that section alone so far, it's not enough. So yeah, the climate issue is still going to be a problem because they don't have, I don't want to say the balls, they don't have the guts to actually implement the amount that we really need. And I would argue even that $555 billion is still, And the reason why I want you to think about this, if people say, well, that's a lot of money, I want you to think about all the money that they've given to Ukraine over the past couple of months. So the money was there. If you reduce the military industrial complex budget, you can easily give the amount that is really needed for some type of climate change to tackle it. But they don't want to do that. So I just want to point that out to people because I see a lot of people dancing around and clapping and being very excited about this passing. And I'm going to explain to you tonight why this is really not enough and this is crumbs. Let's go back in. This portion of the bill takes on transportation and electricity generation and includes $60 billion for growing renewable energy infrastructure and manufacturing like solar panels and wind turbines. It also includes several tax credits for individuals on things like electric vehicles and making homes more energy efficient. The bill would, according to Democrats, lower greenhouse gas emissions by 40% based on 2005 levels. Again, that's based on the levels from 2005. Okay. It's 2022, folks. By the end of the decade, which is short of the 50% Biden had originally claimed for. So again, 40% versus the 50%. And I would argue they should have aimed higher than 50. See, this is why my dad always told me, you know, you shoot high, you aim high. Always ask for more than what you expect to get, right? So if they wanted to get 50%, they probably should have asked for 60 or 70% in order to get that 50%. They asked for 50%, they gave them 40%. Always ask for more. Do that in your life with other things as well, by the way. When you're trying to negotiate salary, always ask for more than what you really want. What else can they say? No. They say no. Okay. At least you tried. But they should have asked for more than that if they really wanted to get 50. And I think they know that. It puts us within a close enough distance that further executive action, state and local government efforts, and private sector leadership could plausibly get us across the finish line by 2030. So again, for the people that don't think local politics is important, they're telling you right here, in order for this to really get to that goal, they're going to need state and local governments to go on with this too. So there's that. Now, let's go ahead and go on further here. Now we're going on to lowering the cost of prescription drugs. And this, it really made some people want to pull their hair out. On health reforms, the bill takes on making prescription drugs more affordable, but there are some limits, of course. This bill includes historic measure that allows the federal health secretary to negotiate the prices of certain expensive drugs each year for Medicare. Notice it says certain expensive drugs. Only certain drugs were a part of this. You see, when they first pitched this idea, we were going to lower the drug cost, the prescription drug cost. We're going to let Medicare negotiate these prices. They said it kind of vaguely. They didn't mention this detail that it's certain drugs, certain ones. Let's go back in. But this won't impact every prescription drug or every patient. Well, look at that, ladies and gentlemen. It doesn't even affect every patient. And it won't take effect quickly. See everybody dancing around and jumping in circles. The negotiations will take effect for 10 drugs covered by Medicare in 2026, increasing to 20 drugs in 2029. So for all the people dancing and jumping around, this doesn't even take effect until 2026, and it only applies to 10 drugs that are covered under it. So what are people supposed to do right now from 2022 to 2026? When people are dealing, remember, this is the Inflation Reduction Act. People are dealing with inflation right now. So why isn't this taking effect right now? What happens if Democrats lose in 2024, which I predict they will? What happens to this then? What happens if the Republicans win and they come in and overturn this? Then what? This should take effect right now. Ro Khanna was on here and he mentioned this Inflation Reduction Act, which he really wanted them to pass. But Ro Khanna didn't mention that this don't even take effect yet. People need help now, not in 2026. People need help now. They can't even help you now. They can't help you now, but they can help people in Ukraine now. See how that works? You have to wait. Now, it goes on to say the portion of the bill that tried to cap at $35 per month for the price of insulin, a drug that is incredibly expensive in the US compared to other countries, was ruled out of order by the Senate Parliamentarian. Well. Not the Senate Parliamentarian again. And this is interesting because when Ro Khanna was on here, what did I say to him? I said, if it's not Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin, it's the Senate Parliamentarian. And he laughed. I didn't. And here we are again. And there's something I want to tell you about the Senate Parliamentarian as well as we go on. I'm going to show you how this is all theater. I'm going to show you how this is all a game. Insulin, which is expensive for a lot of people in this country. The Senate Parliamentarian ruled that out. So if you are diabetic, and you're one of those people that has to ration your insulin, the Senate parliamentarian just said, oh, well, to you. Let's go on. The Senate parliamentarian who ruled the cap could apply on Medicare, a government program, but not on private insurance. You see, this is why, this is the key here. People who have Medicare are probably not struggling to pay for insulin. People who don't have Medicare and only have private insurance or have no insurance are seriously struggling to pay for the insulin. So why would you only give that benefit to people who have Medicare? That benefit should be for everyone. Let's go on. So Democrats split the measure between Medicare and private insurance, but Republicans ultimately blocked the measure for private insurance. So you see this? See how this just went back and forth? First, let's blame the Senate parliamentarian. Now we're going to blame the Republicans. They're the ones who blocked it for the private insurance. But I'm going to show you guys, while they're both complicit, they are both at fault here. I'm going to show you that in a second. The parliamentarian also ruled that a measure that was in the bill to force drug companies to offer rebates if prescription prices outpaced inflation was not totally in line with the rules for the budget reconciliation. She said that it could apply to Medicare patients, but not those who have private insurers. You know what they're saying here? Who qualifies for Medicare? You have to be what, 65 and up? Is it still 65 and up, right? Okay. They're basically saying, screw you to everyone under 65. Now, why would they say that? Let's think about something here for a minute. Who are the people who come out to vote consistently? Usually people who are 65 and up. They're going to fight to keep them alive. They don't care about the rest of us because we're not reliable to come out and vote. Could be a stretch there. I could be stretching that a bit. Maybe. Maybe not. But they don't care about the rest of us. They made that very clear. The bill puts a cap of $2,000 on out-of-pocket prescription drug costs for people on Medicare, effective 2025. See this? I don't understand how people are affording this. I really don't. There is a 3-year extension on healthcare subsidies in the Affordable Care Act, originally passed in a pandemic relief bill last year, estimated by the government to have kept premiums at $10 per month or lower for the vast majority of people covered through the federal health insurance exchange. That helps millions of Americans avoid spikes in their healthcare costs. Okay. Oh, buddy. Oh, boy. I told you. Tax reform. Here's another one. The legislation creates a 15% minimum tax for corporations making $1 billion or more in income, bringing in more than $300 billion in revenue. Unfortunately, a portion of that got cut, though is one that narrowed the carry interest tax loophole. Arizona Kyrsten Sinema agreed to sign onto the bill if this measure, which would have changed the way private equity income is taxed, was cut. Democrats said it would have brought in $14 billion in revenue. Now the rotating billing has gone back to Kyrsten Sinema. They just keep passing this back and forth. It's the Senate parliamentarian, it's Kyrsten Sinema, it's Joe Manchin, it's the Republicans. And I told you, when Joe Manchin changed his mind and agreed to sign on to this, I said, watch, someone else is going to come in and they're going to remove items from this bill. And that is exactly what has happened. Not one person, but multiple people who removed items from the bill. Now, we expect the Republicans to do it, but I'm talking about Democrats who did it. So there you go. A few more of this here. Instead of a 1% excise tax on stock buybacks was introduced, and it could bring in roughly 5 times as much revenue as the carried interest measure. However, it wouldn't take effect until next year, raising predictions of a rush of buybacks by some companies before 2023 rolls around. And then this part here I wanted to tell you about. A major portion of the bill that isn't included due to opposition from West Virginia, Joe Manchin, is extended the child tax credit. What I tell you guys, Manchin expressed last year that the cost to extend the credit was too high. Okay. Joe Manchin just said, screw you and your kids. What'd I tell you? They just passed this back and forth. Too high. But progressives, including Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, have continued to push for its inclusion in the bill. And there's more that goes on. So let's talk about this for just a second. And there's some other items I want to show you about this as well. As I mentioned earlier, I'm already seeing people cheering on this bill. There is no reason for you to cheer. The fact that someone like Joe Manchin changed his mind, that right there let me know this was not going to be something that was really going to be a game changer for American people. And it seems like to me, when it comes to the healthcare issue, when it comes to prescription drugs, they only really trying to help people who are 65 and up. So there's that element as well. But there are more problems about this bill that was not mentioned in that NPR article. First, I want to show you the changes that Kyrsten Sinema made, because it wasn't just that change that was mentioned in that article. Now, shout out to Case Study QB here for this. Now, here are some of the changes that Kyrsten Sinema made with this bill. One, she dropped the $14 billion tax increase affecting wealthy hedge fund managers. Two, remove the tax on carried interest. And three, limited restrictions on depreciated asset reductions. Now, the question that I have, and I think all of you should be asking this question as well, why is Kyrsten Sinema trying to protect these hedge fund managers so much? A while back, Franco was on and we talked about that elite secret meeting, the Bilderberg meeting that happened. Kyrsten Sinema was there. And Franco had a good point. He said, out of all the people in the Senate, why is Kyrsten Sinema at this meeting? Why was she there with the CEO from Shell, Exxon? Why was she there with all those billionaires? Out of all the people in the Senate, it was Kyrsten Sinema. And now you see, what is she doing? She removed the $14 billion tax increase affecting wealthy hedge fund managers. This is what she's there for. She's there to say, I'm a Democrat, but she's also there to say, I am here to protect the wealthy corporations and the billionaires. That's what Kyrsten Sinema is there to do. That's why she doesn't want to pass anything. This is why she voted against $15 minimum wage, because Kyrsten Sinema is not there to look out for the American people. Kyrsten Sinema is there to look out for billionaires, or not working class American people. She's there to look out for billionaires and corporations. And you need to ask yourself why. What's in it for her? Is she going to run again? If she doesn't run again, what's her next step? This is what she was brought there to do. So you see why I talked about that meeting, that Bilderberg meeting, and now you see what's happening? This is why it's important. You need to know who they're meeting with. You need to know who their donors are, because it explains in the way that they legislate. Now, I told you guys multiple times before that they don't pass anything that doesn't have some type of corporate interest, right? So shout out to Case Study QB here, because he was able to get a clip of them discussing the Senate parliamentarian not agreeing to those drug prices. So listen to this, because to me, it's just, I don't understand how you excuse this. I really don't.
Talk about prescription drug prices. I do know the Senate parliamentarian just this morning did kill one provision to cap prescription drug prices. How are you feeling about that right now? I know that was important for you.
Yeah, it is important. It was always a question, though, once we went beyond Medicare. We had hoped that would be included, but it was always a question. The biggest driver on these costs is Medicare. And as you know, we have been trying for years to get Medicare, given the power to do what the VA does for veterans. The VA negotiates and gets about a 40% reduction in prices for veterans because they negotiate. So Medicare, huge buyer, the biggest one in this space, hasn't been able to do that. And I have, since I was in the U.S. House of Representatives back in 1998, I used to do these bus trips from Detroit over to Windsor, 10 minutes on a bus. You could drop the cost 40%. So it's outrageous. So right now, the most important thing is that the biggest driver, the biggest customer on prescription drugs, which is Medicare, is going to be able to negotiate prices. We're going to cap out-of-pocket costs for seniors at $2,000 a year, which is a big deal. And, if we can get this cap $35 a month cap on insulin for people, wow, this is a big win.
For seniors. Seniors. Not Gen X, not millennials, not Gen Z, seniors. That's it. They are protecting the group that comes out to support them. That's what they're doing, not us. They don't see us as important. Just a fact here. Seniors. Now, that was in reference to the Senate parliamentarian deciding to remove the $35 cap for insulin. Now, some people have come back to me and they said, well, they couldn't help it. They were all on board, but the Senate parliamentarian. I want to explain to you why this is theater. If the Democratic Party really had so much issue with the Senate parliamentarian and they really wanted that $35 cap to pass, then why is the Senate parliamentarian still there? If you don't think that a Senate parliamentarian has not been removed before, you would be wrong. In fact, George W. Bush, it happened under his presidency. Let's take a look at this. I'm not going to read the entire article, but I just want to prove a point. Now, this was back in 2001. Senate parliamentarian Robert Dove, the official responsible for enforcing the chamber's rules and procedures, has been asked to leave his post after a dispute with the Republican leadership. Senate sources said yesterday, Dove angered Republicans, especially Majority Leader Trent Lott, with at least two recent rulings that effectively made it harder for the GOP to push President Bush's budget and tax cut proposals through the evenly divided body. Republicans declined to say why Dove had been asked to leave, but his departure will force the appointment of a new parliamentarian, one of the Senate's most important, if least known, officers at a time in which the Democrats and Republicans are seeking to operate under an unprecedented power-sharing arrangement. The office of the parliamentarian has always been one of the most important in the Senate, but Dove's rulings have been particularly sensitive this year, with the body split between 50 Democrats and 50 Republicans. My, does that sound familiar? Well, well, well. So again, I just want to remind you that in 2001, Robert Dove, who was the Senate parliamentarian at that time under George W. Bush's presidency, was removed because he was not ruling the way the Republican leadership wanted him to. He was holding up budget proposals from President Bush. So they got rid of Dove. So to that point, I am here to let you know that if Democrat leadership were really not happy about what the Senate parliamentarian is doing, they would ask the Senate parliamentarian to leave. They can replace her with someone else. The Senate parliamentarian is doing exactly what Democrat leadership want her to do. That includes Joe Biden. That includes Nancy Pelosi. That includes Chuck Schumer. I'm going to say this again. In the past, when party leadership have had difficulties and were angered by decisions that Senate parliamentarians have made, they have asked them to leave. So, for the Senate parliamentarian to not approve the $35 cap for insulin, if the Democrat Party leadership had so much anger about that, if they were so troubled by that, they would ask the Senate parliamentarian to step down and they would replace her with someone else. They are not doing that because the Senate parliamentarian is doing exactly what Dem leadership want them to do. Now, you may ask, why would they want them to do that? Because you got to look at all of the politicians in the Democratic Party that are in Congress that are taking all this money from Blue Cross Blue Shield, from Aetna, from United Healthcare. You think all of them really want to put a cap on insulin that's $35? No, because their donors don't want that cap. This is why I tell you to follow the money. This is why I tell you that this is all theater. And this is why I tell you that none of them are actually going to fight for you. It's all a game. They have multiple rotating villains. They take turns and point to who's going to be the next one to strike something down. But they are there because Dem leadership wants them to be there. They are there on purpose. They are not there by mistake. Do not confuse that. So there. If you didn't know about Robert Dove, you learned something about him tonight. And the Democrat leadership could do the exact same thing. Exact same thing. But it's not just the Senate parliamentarian. In the first article, I showed you where they were blaming Republicans for the reason why it didn't pass with private insurance. I want to show you something. I want to show you why both of them are at fault. Let's give a shout out to Warren Gunnels because he was not playing around. You see, Warren, he broke this down hour by hour. Our amendments. So he's telling you what was removed in the time that it was removed and how it was voted on. Cut Medicare drug prices by 50%. Here are the votes, ladies and gentlemen. 1 to 99. Now, last time I checked, there aren't 99 Republicans in the Senate. No. That means that includes Democrats. 1 to 99. Democrats voted against that too. You see it? Let's go on. At 1:15 a.m., expand Medicare. 3 to 97. Again, this 97 includes Democrats. Oh, and by the way, this 1 to 99, when I say that includes Democrats, remember Miss Elizabeth Warren, who claims to be so progressive, that includes her too. So somebody explain this. Explain this. Why? You see what I mean? You see how NPR, that article, they tried to blame it just on the Republicans. But here comes Warren with the numbers. Let's go on. At 4:01 a.m., Civilian Climate Corps, 1 to 98. Again, part of that 98 are Democrats. 7:48 a.m. extend the child tax credit. Now, if you'll notice, that article said that Joe Manchin did not approve of that. But right here, 1 to 97. So a couple of people did not vote here. A couple of people abstained for whatever reason. And this is the one we're about to go into now. Strike fossil fuel brakes. 1 to 99. And I think we all know that it was Bernie who was that one for that one. And I'm going to get into that video in just a second. But I wanted to show you these numbers from Warren because it's very telling. So if anyone that you have seen is basically just blaming the Republicans for this, you go ahead and show them Warren's tweet and let them see that the Democrats are a part of this as well. Now, why would all those Democrats vote to remove these items as well? Why? Because it's one corporate party. Republicans and Democrats together, one corporate party. Now, let's go into this fossil fuels issue because they talked about climate measures in this bill. But Bernie Sanders, shout out to him for pointing this out, was the one who mentioned that you're giving more money to fossil fuel companies in the same bill where you're supposed to try to help do some type of climate reform. Listen to this. Let's go into it.
But, Mr. President, the bad news is that this bill, as currently written, includes a huge giveaway to the fossil fuel industry, both in the reconciliation bill that we are considering and in a side deal that was just made public a few days ago. Mr. President, under this legislation, the fossil fuel industry will receive billions of dollars in new tax breaks and subsidies over the next 10 years, on top of the $15 billion in tax breaks and corporate welfare that they already receive every year. And interestingly enough, Mr. President, that may well be the reason why BP, one of the largest oil companies in the world, supports this bill. It may be the reason why Shell, another huge oil company, supports this bill. And it is the reason, I suspect, why the CEO of ExxonMobil is pleased by many of the provisions included in this deal. So we got to...
First of all, for Bernie Sanders to sit up there and say, it may be the reason why. No, there's no maybe, Bernie. It is the reason why. Let's be real. What do you mean? It may be the reason why Exxon supports this. No, Bernie, it is exactly the reason why. You're the one that told us about the money in politics. You're the one that told us about the corruption. What do you mean it may be? You cannot afford to be this nice at this point in time. You cannot. Let's go back in.
Think a little bit about what it means when major oil companies who are in the process of destroying the planet support this legislation. Under this bill, up to 60 million acres of public waters must be offered up for sale each and every year to the oil and gas industry before the federal government approves any new offshore wind development. To put that in perspective, 60 million acres is the size of the state of Michigan. Further, under this bill, up to 2 million acres of public lands must be offered up for sale each and every year to the oil and gas industry.
Pause. I hope everyone caught that. Under that bill, public land must be sold to the oil and gas industry. If that's not a red flag for everyone, how can you celebrate this? How can you celebrate it? Public land. And that depends on what they consider to be public land. What if some of that public land is native public land? Wouldn't be the first time.
Before leases can move forward for any renewable energy development on public lands. In total, this bill will offer the fossil fuel industry up to 700 million acres of public lands and waters to oil and gas drilling over the next decade, far more than the oil and gas industry could possibly use.
Did you hear that? More drilling over the next decade. Now, Bernie Sanders gave that speech and pointed out that money is going to fossil fuel companies underneath that legislation, but Bernie still voted for the bill. You know, the Democrat politicians that we have in Congress are weak. They're weak-minded. They have no fight. Bernie Sanders just might as well go home and sit down. Just go home already, Bern. Really? He still voted for it. They have no fight. They have nothing. They're all sold out. All of them. I want to show you something. My former mayor had something to say about this as well. Mayor Marty Walsh. And they're asking Marty Walsh, shout out to Case Study QB here for this, about Bernie's statement about how this package doesn't really address working families' pocket. That was something else that Bernie mentioned as well. I want you to listen to something that Marty Walsh said. Again, this is my former mayor, so keep that in mind. Listen to this.
Bernie Sanders has said that the problem he sees with the economic package is that it does not directly address people's pocketbooks as prices rise. Despite the title of the legislation, that's his criticism. How do you answer that criticism?
Well, I think one of the biggest ones is we have millions of seniors in America today. My mother's one of those folks that are paying extraordinary amounts of money for prescription drugs. And by allowing the companies to be able to Medicare, Medicaid, and to negotiate prices and bring those prices down will help millions of seniors in America. That is a big win for a lot of people in this country. And I think that
there it is again. There's that word again. Bring it back. Here's the word again. Pay attention.
How do you answer that criticism?
Well, I think one of the biggest ones is we have millions of seniors in America today. My mother's one of those folks that are paying extraordinary amounts of money for prescription drugs. And by allowing the companies to be able to Medicare, Medicaid, and to negotiate prices and bring those prices down will help millions of seniors in America.
Will help millions of seniors. Again. Forget the rest of you. Let's just help seniors with their medical bills. Let's just help seniors with their medical expenses. Let's just help seniors get out of this medical rut. What about everybody else? What's with it? Why does it always have to be exclusive to certain groups? What's with the means testing here? Only seniors. That's all we're going to look out for when it comes to medical in this country. Isn't that a damn shame?
That is a big win for a lot of people in this country. And I think that when you think about who's on fixed incomes and who we have to help, if you're a younger worker and you want to better your situation in life, people are doing that. They're jumping from job to get better paying jobs. We're making investments in workforce development and job training programs, and we're creating those.
Marty, you know damn well, especially coming from Boston, he's saying the younger people are doing that by jumping from job to job. Yeah, younger people jump from job to job. But you want to know something else? A lot of these companies have no health insurance. So what Marty Walsh is basically saying to you, they're going to look out for the seniors when it comes to the medical expenses, but they're not going to look out for the young people because young people are jumping from job to job, so they're all right. If young people were all right, they wouldn't have to jump from job to job, Marty. They could stay at the employer they're at. If they were getting good raises or real raises or even getting a freaking raise, if they were getting promotions, they wouldn't have to jump from job to job. Screw you guys, because you're able to job hop. So we're just going to look out for the seniors because they're living on a fixed income. As if the younger people don't have to live on tight budgets right now either. This is the mindset of a lot of people in this country. He says, helping the seniors, this will help a lot of people. Aren't millennials the largest population? Listen, bruh, this country is laughable. It is laughable at this point. I think Rob Durden summed this up the best. And then I'll go over to Roger Waters here. Rob Durden, he's a part of Indie News Network. Follow him over there. Build Back Better was originally $3.5 trillion and was touted by Democrats. 6 months passed and Manchin had the price tag down to $1.7 trillion. 6 more months go by, they pass a bill a quarter that big and 1/10 as big as Build Back Better and take a victory lap. This is the Democrats in a nutshell. Where's the lie? He's right. This is what they do. They get it down to just the bare crumbs and they celebrate like it's 1999. So I wanted to talk in length about this tonight because I want you to understand, because there are people out there saying this is a good thing. It is not a good thing. And I hope I broke it down for you tonight so that you can understand. Now do you see why there are so many problems with this? It's poor, it's weak, it's pathetic. And if they can give a huge package to Ukraine over and over again every 2 weeks, they damn sure can do better for the American people. This is not something to applaud. It is not time to sing and dance the Kool and the Gang celebration. Not now.